not winning 90% of your new business because you have some sort of incredible value.
I'm going to take a bit of a different angle.
I've got a budget this big. I'm going to give it to you because you have a really killer plan.
You give a Red Bull to a turtle, what do you expect?
I think that's a dead turtle. So let's move on to...
E-break.
Cheers.
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 Does your current premium finance company lock you into long-term agreements? That's because they don't want you talking to us. At IFS, we win your business the good old-fashioned way, with customer service. I know you don't always have to use a premium finance company, but when you do, you should use IFS. Cheers.
Hi there, and welcome to another episode of the Digital Insurance Pint podcast. As always, I'm your host, Tom Reed. Today, I'm joined by Jeff Roy, CEO of Excalibur Insurance.
Hey, Pinters.
I'm also joined by Adam Mitchell, CEO of Mitch Insurance.
Hello.
Steve Earle, unfortunately, is out with a significant case of diarrhea and can't make it into the show today. So, unfortunately for him, he's going to miss our special guest, Adam Hare. Adam, nice to see you.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys.
Thank you very much to IFS Premium Finance and the team there supporting this show. This is not possible without them, so thanks, guys.
Okay. Well, I'm going to jump in here with the speed round here. Adam Hare. Feel free to jump in, Adam Hairless, too. So, Adam, I know you're a musician. You play pretty mean guitar, I think, and a couple other instruments.
Try to, yeah.
Yeah.
Try to.
So,
yeah.
What's your favorite Canadian band or artist? We always have to know that.
Yeah, so I actually went to high school with an awesome Canadian metal band called Protest the Hero, and they're still good friends of mine. They're still touring and taking on the world. So I'm gonna go with Protest the Hero, and if you haven't heard them or listened to them, you should check them out.
If you can see one live concert anywhere in 2024, who would you see? Where would you see them?
So I'm actually going. I've already got the tickets to see NoFX. NoFX is my favorite punk rock band from back in the day. Grew up listening to them, and they're on their last tour. They're old men now, and they're coming through Toronto. So I've got my tickets booked, and I'm going to go see them in Toronto. And I'm pumped. All my buddies from high school, and yeah, it's going to be good.
Now, when you're not geeking out in insurance, what do you like to do in your spare time, Adam?
Yeah, I was just saying, we just got back from a snowboarding trip. Love snowboarding. Love cottaging, fishing, boating, hanging out with the family. And when I'm not doing that, I'm generally trying to play music as best as I can. But that's pretty much what I do.
Good list of hobbies. Now, for our listeners, are you an iPhone or an Android user?
iPhone all the way.
Okay, what are the one or two apps you can't live without on your iPhone, or have you downloaded any cool apps lately that you got to share with our listeners?
I can only say Splitwise because we just used this on a trip that we were on. It's the greatest simple function math app for a group going together and needing to split stuff. It's the greatest thing on planet Earth.
Now, leaders or readers, maybe share with their listeners any books you're reading right now or any podcasts you like to listen to help get you fired up for work.
Yeah, I'm definitely one of those guys who packs a book and never reads. I really want to be reading more. Podcasts are more up my alley. Diary of a CEO with Stephen Bartlett's an awesome one, and I was just on vacation and listening to the episode with him and Goggins. And if you want to really feel like a bag of shit, you listen to anything that David Goggins says, and it makes you feel real small, real quick. So that's a recent one.
Last thing, you can take a trip with your family or anybody on vacation in 2024. I know you went skiing. Where would you go?
Probably going surfing, surf camp somewhere, Costa Rica, maybe. Yeah, I definitely need to do more surfing.
I'm going to pass over the rest of the guys here. Great job, Adam.
So next opener we have is, can you walk everybody through the history of Adam in the background and trying to touch base on a couple of the points with Insurance Jack and bread and butter along with Petley-Hare?
I don't know. I think probably like lots of people you spoke to, I definitely grew up in an insurance family. But much like most people growing up in an insurance family, didn't want to be a part of the insurance business. I cut my teeth in the marketing and design world and music, as Jeff had said. Growing up playing in bands, hanging out at our local venue, the Dungeon, really quickly became the guy who, I think took to the business side of it. was the one booking shows, was the one kind of planning things. And then all of a sudden realized, hey, we need merch, we need designs, we need a website. All of that stuff just really spoke to me, and I think kind of shaped who I am even now. So I ended up going to school for media marketing, graduated, landed for, at the time, my dream job, working for Universal Music Canada. Worked there for about 7 or 8 years. Got to work with some really great artists, all the Canadian artists that we didn't mention, but like the Hip and Bieber and Headley and all these great bands who were coming out of the Toronto area. All while the little family insurance business was going. I think I spent one summer in a back office doing renewals or paperwork or whatever, and I was like, this is not for me. I'm never coming back here. And yeah, fast forward to wanting to start a family and looking at some opportunities. And I actually had an opportunity to interview with an agency out in New York City, which for me was like the big times after Universal. And I kind of thought at that point, if I'm going to up and move and leave Canada altogether, why not have a beer with Dad and chat about his business and see what's going on there. So I think I really didn't. I tried to kind of be naive, I think, and not ask too many questions. I felt like if I ever prodded a bit, I probably would get a rope thrown and I'd get sucked right into it. But when I did open Pandora's box, I kind of heard, hey, we're spending X amount on Yellow Pages. Hey, we're spending X amount here. I don't know how to attract a new type of customer. I don't know what the hell's going on with this online thing and apps and all of the shit that was going on. And I happen to be working for one of the world's leading music companies doing all of this for all of our artists. So it kind of felt, I wouldn't say a match made in heaven, maybe. Yeah. But I definitely saw an opportunity and thought, why not come in and at least explore this? So yeah, I think that was kind of the catalyst to everything. I thought I'd come in. I thought I'd spend maybe a year. My initial conversation was, we'll do this for a year. I'll come in. We'll build a bit of a brand guide. We'll talk about a bit of a digital marketing play. We'll make a plan. We'll kind of move this thing forward. And that ended up to me being here 11 years later, being the president of the company. And yeah, I think really fell in love with the idea of taking an industry and a product and something that seemed so, at the time, kind of boring and humanless, and no one wanted to talk about it. And I think from my marketing background, I think fell in love with the concept of trying to kind of turn that on its head and try to find some excitement in this. And once I met the team that we had over there, I was working with great people, solving hard problems, and I knew this industry, and all of you guys do a great job at this, but advocating for it, pushing it forward. And I think I saw that there was an avenue to do this in. So that was kind of how I ended up here. You mentioned Bread and Butter. That's a creative agency that I'm a co-founder in. And that kind of just came from my passion for design and marketing and everything we were doing for our company at the time. We were getting noticed by other people in our industry and saying, hey, who's doing all your work? And we're going, it's us doing all of our work. Why not help other businesses and other companies kind of thrive with that? So super fortunate to wear the hat of president of Petley-Hare. Super fortunate to also wear the hat of the president and co-founder of Bread and Butter, which is an agency that now, we get to work with lots of people in our space, and then lots of companies outside of our space as well. We do a ton of branding work and stuff for the local hospital. And just, it's really good to kind of be able to skip back and forth and make sure we keep our creative chops rolling. And I think helps us with our brand story as well here at Petley.
Adam, why don't you talk us through the origin story of Insurance Jack? And then, some of us were peripherally engaged with Insurance Jack, and we can give our 2 cents. But you give us the origin story.
Right. So origin story is a naive young kid coming into an industry that had no that just couldn't be told no, and no one could hold me down, and wanted to do what I thought I could do. Coming from a background of really working with really creative, great people, and solving problems and be able to come up with solutions without, huge bags of money, was something that we were used to doing. I was fortunate to go to school and grow up around a group of people that could come up with a business idea and be able to launch a proof of concept without any dollars. It's just time and ideas. So fast forward to, coming into our industry, being, I think my first event was going to a YBC conference, and mine was just blown. Eyes were open up, and like meeting all these people and companies and figuring out the industry, and seeing where the shortcomings were, and knowing user interface design was like at the helm of what I love doing, and seeing quoting and trying to understand this out for our own company. I think Insurance Check was just a thought and an idea that things could be better. I didn't know how constrained the industry was at the time too. So when I started talking about it, everyone, including our own leaders in the company, were like, "You're crazy, kid! Like, what are you doing?" And I was like, "No, I think I can get a quote with 3 questions, and I think we can offer this." Everyone lies online, and why don't we assume the best? Let's ask the meaningful pieces of information, and let's give a price and at least set that hook. And then let's have the best damn team in the business to follow up that hook within 5 seconds and be able to do that in a controlled environment. I think one of the best things, and I've talked about this a lot, but I think in most cases, once you have a legacy company behind you with employees who have done things the same way they've done things, you can't pivot. You can't move as quickly as I thought we could. So, the analogy of everyone always saying, well, if you could take your business and pick it up and move it across the street and start again, but with the best of the best, and pull and pick, that was kind of what I thought, and where my brain went was, how can I take who I connected with best at Petley, take the best service person, the best salesperson, partner that with the best technology that I can bring to the table, with the best brand I can bring to the table. How can this go wrong? So that was Insurance Check. It wasn't, I mean, like everyone said, like, how much did you spend out of the gate? And what was this? It was me and 2 other guys in a basement working on this thing for a year. And I had no idea the day that we launched it that it would get the public attention and the industry attention it did. I was only in the industry at that point for like a year and a half to 2 years, and I was getting flown around telling this story, and I was like, guys, this is bottom of the barrel stuff here. Like, we need to be further ahead than this, but I'll take it. We got a few contracts out of it. Companies liked what we were doing. People started giving us money to help with the idea, and this thing just snowballed, and it was great for relationships, great for our brand, great for everything. But I think, and just to fast forward, and we can unpack it a little more, but I think what I did was look at Petley-Hare and go 100 years of legacy, 100 years of problems, 100 years of success. But to make that thing turn on a dime, it was going to take a lot more work, and me being young and hungry and not patient, and all of the things, I wanted the immediate hit. So we started this new thing, and I left the old thing kind of over here. We had this brand new shiny object that was fun and exciting, and people were behind it, and we had a parade around it, and it felt good. And I think just to kind of wrap that portion up was, and why it's not going now, is because every single good piece of learnings that I took from that, I was like, how can I leave the mothership behind? Like, the mothership is the thing that's affording the opportunity to create this nugget. Now the real task at hand is turning this mothership into what this nugget was. So that was the real journey. In hindsight and looking back, was great that you did this shiny thing. It was quick. It was great. You took everyone. That was great. But it was really harder, as all of us know in our businesses, to take your company and take every one of your employees and strip it and start again is way harder than starting something brand new. So I'd like to say that, like, the office I sit in now, with the team I sit with, the brand we have, as you guys have all seen, and all of these is the accumulation of kind of Insurance Jack now coming out into the bigger picture. And we wound it down, but all of those customers and clients and experiences and pieces of tech have just rolled into Petley-Hare, and Petley-Hare and Insurance Jack, it's all one and the same at this point. So it was the biggest mistake slash great thing that happened all in kind of one. And I think it's led us to where we are today. And without it, I don't know. I think it really helped shape me in the industry, and helped shape, just learning about what the hell is going on.
So you've undertaken 2 really big branding exercises. One was the launch and creation and vision of Insurance Jack, And then 2, more recently, the entire Petley-Hare file and modernizing that, and the fresh look of site, logo, saying, and new building soon to be announced. What's your sort of take on it? Is it working? Like, you went through the insurance jack side of the trials and tribulations of ups and downs, and there's going to be plus and minuses for teammates and clients and finances. And how do you think about branding and those expenses?
What's working now is having a team who, and now it's even more real because we're in a space that we're surrounded by brand that's like hitting you in the face, and culture, art everywhere, and all these things. And I think what's working is to have a company of people who feel like their brand represents them well. I think that's it really felt, actually, I was speaking with someone yesterday and talking about this, but it felt like we were maybe a rock and roll band with a Celine Dion shirt on, and just like weren't able to like tell our story. Being in this space, having this new brand, we evolved big time. Petley-Hare evolved big time, but when you went into our space in Oshawa, you looked at our website, you looked at our brand. Anyone who met me always was like, oh, Petley, like it wasn't reflective. Jeff, you came down to the launch event in Toronto during IBAO, and like being in that room and connecting with people and seeing, and everyone was like, oh, this makes sense. Like, this is Adam. Like, so yeah, it felt like we're finally where we're supposed to be. I don't have our customer input yet. We're very early in that. We're just getting into doing a lot more customer facing stuff in Durham region. A big part of this story, and Mitchell, we talked about this, but young again, naive Adam, who wanted to take on the world, knowing our marketing spend and our marketing dollars and being realistic about what we can actually achieve and what we want to tackle is we've been in Durham 100 years or 102 years. There's a lot of opportunity right here in our own backyard. And from a brand impact perspective, we can actually impact Durham better than I can impact the rest of Canada, or even the rest of Ontario at this point. So we really are doubling down and trying to do things here in a special way. This new building we're in is committing to doing things with the community in a different way, and not just for customers, but inviting the community into our space. We're doing a big brand awareness campaign in March to just talk about our value propositions and who we are and all of these things. So I really just feel like we've caught up, and our team, back to where this started, is like seeing our team smile and be happy and wearing their new Petley shirts with the Petley-Hare slogans and all the things around, and being like, it's meaningful and it's truthful and it's who our team actually is today, which is kind of cool.
So, Adam Hare, you've talked about, how your staff have reacted, and to a certain extent how your customers have reacted, and so on. What about carriers? Who, you lost anybody through this process? Gained any carriers? Like, how has the carrier communities reacted to this?
Yeah, I mean, I think all positive feedback for the most part. I mean, but you get an email saying, "Oh, great." I think our true partners, and by true I mean who've been with us the longest and see who we're doing and understand our vision, have always been behind this and understand that. I mean, we could do a whole other podcast on some moves that we made last year in canceling some markets and really doubling down on our partners and who that is. So we've walked away from last year, about four relationships. That was a ton of work and very hard for us. I think I'd say like 3 or 4 of our partners have just been there with us from Insurance Jack days until now. It was funny to watch these like dips of like, hey, you're all the rage, everything's great, and then as that landscape changed and shifted, you notice the tables and the people around you start shifting. But there has been a few companies who have been with us through and through, and we're forever grateful for that. We've choose your partners wisely, I think, in any case, and that was a big learning for us, and that we didn't want to have a contract with every single company. It was important to us that they bought into our brand and bought into our message and bought into our team and bought into our vision and what we're doing. I've also spoke with people who think I'm nuts and said, "How you've canceled contract and you've done what?" And maybe in 3 years I'm going to be sitting here again and going like, "Shit, they were right." I think for us, we make moves on what's truthful and feels good to us. And I think as you're building a team and you want the best of the best, we want the best of the best partners. So we've been selective, and also, again, what an opportunity to be in, to be able to even say we can be selective. I couldn't imagine being a broker now, starting out and trying to get a contract. And we're at a point now of 103 years into this and being able to pick and choose exactly what contracts we want and don't want. So it's a really, really unique kind of spot to be in.
So I got to follow up on that, because it is pretty rare for a broker to cancel a contract, even when when that carrier is, has a direct writer and is actively buying up ad space right beside your brand and doing all kinds of things that most partners don't really do. So can you kind of summarize? I'm not going to get into who it is you canceled, because we don't need to give them any airspace or airtime, but but what were the reasons? Like, you talked about focusing on these other ones, but why did you pick those ones to get rid of?
It's just, I think that I'm truthful for what I say. I can't believe how many rooms you walk into and the same people would be saying the same things about the same carriers over and over again. Yet, behind that back and behind to someone else, they're trying to grow that book quietly and take side deals and work on all these things. I think where we saw consistent lack of performance and lack of support and lack of service year over year over year, lack of great results. All of these things combined got us to a point that, it is not beneficial to our service team to have 50 markets. We know it's really friggin' hard, and Mitch, you do it great, and there's lots of other people who do it great as well. We just needed to pick our lane, and for me, I need to be steadfast on these decisions and kind of stick with them. So I think for us, we knew we were moving slower. We were accommodating relationships that didn't really do anything for us, and also didn't do anything for our customers. So I think when we felt like we were at a point that to pick up a phone and be stuck in a queue, as we all know, those companies that we could name, and there's ebbs and flows of all of this. I think my experience over the past 3 years, this is going to be completely shifted in another 3 to 5 years, and there's probably going to be a swing, and whoever we canceled is going to be the best friggin' market in the world. At that time and in this phase of where our business was, it was to us, didn't feel like it was doing us more of a disservice than a service. And yeah, to be able to answer to our customers who are calling and saying I'm having bad experiences, to be able to answer to my team who would sit in a boardroom crying because they can't get stuff done. We made some tough decisions in favor of our company. They were really hard decisions and really hard things that, I have to follow through and carry on my back the weight of what that looks like when you have to cancel a contract and figure out where all of those markets are going and what that looks like. But I think it's just another example of us, staying true to who we are and making tough calls when tough calls need to be made. So yeah, we're still in the process. Again, if we do this a year later, I might be able to tell you more insight, but it's been a ride.
I think what you've done is you've done a branding process a lot, and again, a lot of people are going through it. There's been a lot of amalgamations, people changing their names, etc. Maybe walk our listeners through it that are contemplating rebranding their brokerage. What was involved? Like, how long did it take you? You look at, and again, we tell the listeners, make sure you go to your website and check out. I love how the ears are perfectly designed, the ones bent down. The listing kind of draws you in. Like, there's a lot of great design work here that a lot of people, they can't copy it because, again, it's not authentic to them, right? The way to say, good artist rob, great artist steal. So it's like you've got some really great stuff you've done in there, but maybe walk the listeners through how long did it take you to do it? What was involved in it? And again, you're probably your worst critic, right? Like you're like, oh my God, I did these other brands. You probably put so much pressure on yourself. It must have been incredible and almost nerve-wracking to launch it out in the world, right?
Yeah, I'm for sure everything you said there. I'm awful as my own client. This was easily 2 years in the making, of just talking about that. And I think the real first point was just like, when you're staring at a version of yourself that you don't even understand anymore, was the catalyst of like, it's time. So this wasn't, just coming up with a new logo because we want to be fancy and cool. That wasn't it at all. If anything, we've stripped everything around. Any of marketing you're going to see is like it's text on a color, and that's where we're at. It is like all about voice and all about messaging and tone. So yeah, it was 2 years in the making, and I think my advice to anyone is like, don't, and almost you said this, Jeff, is like, don't just do it for the sake of doing it. Once you understand, who you are, once you understand how you want to speak to your customers, once you understand who your customers are, and maybe who they're not right now, but the customers you want, it becomes clear, how you should go about starting to attract them and what you do that's going to attract that. So I think for us, just back to that same analogy I kind of talked about earlier, where we just felt like I was wearing clothes that didn't even belong on me. I felt like I'd walk to the office and it'd be like imposter syndrome of like, we were still suits and ties and things going around. And I was like, these aren't our customers, and this isn't us, and this isn't what we are. So yeah, 2 years, and I think yeah, fortunate again. Like we talked a little bit about bread and butter, and I haven't give kudos enough publicly, but our marketing director internally, Kevin, is phenomenal. Oddly enough, Kevin, when I left Universal Music Canada, they said, "You've been great. Do you have anyone who is great and could fill this role?" And the first person that came out of my mouth was Kevin. So I came to Petley and I put my best friend Kevin in the role at Universal, and they loved him, and I'll work there. When I got to a point at Petley, that I was like, I can't be full-time marketing director anymore. I've got to kind of take on some other steps here. I reached out to Kevin, and I knew the only way to get him to leave Universal now and come to work at the family brokerage was to offer him something. And I said, well, maybe we could start an agency at the same time. I think I sweetened the pot enough, and luckily he decided to want to be on side with that. And Kevin's been instrumental in all of this. I think him and I working together, just it's a really special relationship, and we both have such distinct backgrounds in design. He was fine arts, and we're both huge nerds when it comes to all this stuff. But outside of that, we also had hired help outside of here, because, like you said, Jeff, I think I scrutinized everything way too much. And it got pretty deadly at times. I'm like, scrap it all, let's start again. So we had a committee, and this also, we involved our entire team too, right? This wasn't about what does Adam think look good. This was about who we are, what we stand for. And we did a lot of that research and time, and I think those building bricks from the beginning of understanding our team, what makes them tick, a company that they want to be a part of. So it was, it definitely is much more than a clip art logo experience. It really is a full kind of come to life story. And I think there were so many amazing stories I was seeing happen in and around the office and the community as all these brokerages. It's like you go sit with an owner who's not doing themselves justice at all. They have these like wonderful stories and give back moments and all these really, really great things that I think that's the piece that people want to hear about and see about. And then we have a clip art logo that looks like a law firm from 1950 and hasn't been touched. So no one's doing themselves justice. And I think it's there's a huge opportunity for these brands. And yes, they're small. And I don't care if you're a mom and pop shop and say, well, we don't have the dollars to invest. Spend some time, find a smaller agency who's not a huge one from Toronto. Spend the time and tell your story. That's what it's about.
It's about how to tell your story, and you have to understand who you are to tell your story. So I think that was great to share your soul searching about how you have to look within. A brand is not a logo; it's a story going on in the mind of the consumer. And if you're not building your own story and putting this story out there consistently, you can see a bad brand in 5 seconds, right? So bravo for the work you've done. And I just want to dovetail quickly into the one question I've got here is, you've been an entrepreneur for a while now. You've shared a bunch of things you went through. For any of some of our new listeners, there's a lot of newer people getting in the business, a lot of people getting into the brokerage side of things. What are some of your biggest fuck ups, and what are some of your biggest successes, just to share with everybody?
Yeah. But before insurance, just talking about being an entrepreneur, one of my first companies was a clothing line. And that was hilarious in itself. And so many learnings in that was, I created this thing, started designing merchandise for friends' bands, for fun. All of a sudden everyone was like, hey, you're kind of good at this. And I also hated a lot of the designs and design direction I'd get from a band who said, I want more fire and more. I'm like, oh God, it's awful. So I was like, I want to buy some creative time for myself. And so why not create your own stuff and start printing it? So I made my first shirt, and lo and behold, I ended up selling out of them, no problem. And that kind of kickstarted this first clothing line. But as I'm learning how to design, create, build, find the person who does the clothes, ship the clothes, what all this looks like. Before I knew it, I was creating shirts and shipping them to Europe and Asia and all over, and I was spending way more money on shipping than I was charging on shipping, and losing money left, right, and center. And I had orders coming in, and I'm standing at Canada Post packaging these up, and I don't know, I charged $15 for the shirt, and I added like, I'll add another $5 on for shipping, $10 on for shipping, and I'm spending $50 to send a shirt out. And it was just like, so I got stuck in this window for a while. But I think in all of that, have some humility, and I think in every business, that's it, right? Be able to make those mistakes, be able to pivot. Everyone asks, like, how do you run a business, and how did you get good at doing that? And I was like, by fucking up a lot and trying things. And again, I think a lot of us are in that position. So yeah, I don't know. It's been, with that Insurance Shack, there was a load of errors. I think in any one of those, I've always had humility, and I've always been able to, you know, not be able to hide behind it, be able to be completely transparent and forthcoming. And this was a mistake. We lost money. This happened. How do we not do this again? And I think as long as you're not making the same stupid mistakes 3 or 4 times, then you're going to be better for it. So yeah, I could do a whole podcast on how many mistakes I've made, but
As much as I'd like to do a whole podcast on beating up Adam Hare as well, I think you've done enough of it. Let's flip the script on the other side. And what accomplishment are you most proud of? And we're going to take away the low-hanging fruit of saying family and how much you love your kids.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna honestly say that this moment, I don't. You guys all know this. To sit in this journey that we all have been on, and we have wins and we have losses, and sitting in our new building right now, talking to you guys about this new brand, is a huge accomplishment. And we just invited our team in here last week, and it was just amazing to see everyone, and yeah, to have to be in the middle of a rebrand, which is really neat, but also to be able to at the same time change the customer experience when they're coming into your physical space, and kind of have that all work hand in hand. Is just something I never thought I'd be able to do. Being an ideas person, and an experienced person, this has been, yeah, it's been a dream come true to work on these two projects hand in hand. It's almost killed me. But the fact that I'm in a boardroom actually talking to you, and it's here, and there's team out here working even from a remote world, when we didn't know if anyone would even want to come and hang out in this space. So yeah, I think I'm actually going to pat myself on the back for 2 seconds and say we're here right now. Super proud of this moment, and really excited for the year ahead with Petley-Hare and where we're headed.
So Adam, you talked about things that you've made mistakes on, things you've had success with. Your conversation about your dad giving you sort of a hand up resonates with me personally, because my kids are at that age now where they're sort of stretching their wings, so to speak. So put yourself in your dad's shoes to consider all those fuck ups. What advice would you give to brokers who are considering reinvesting somehow in their business, and I'm not talking about slapping a new coat of paint on, but they're making some significant planned improvements to their business. What advice would you give them?
First, don't do it if you're doing it half-ass. I think we have always, and this was a learned trait, that like we've never been the company to make money and sit around and go, oh, let's just count it, or let's put it here. It's like every dollar, and more than every dollar, because we have a lot of debt as well now. But more than every dollar is really put back into this with meaning. I think, yeah, it's seen enough around us, the businesses that are not reinvesting in themselves. And it's, yeah, I don't know. It's kind of weird. I lived under a rock for 3 years when all of this and COVID and everything. And I think popping up and seeing other brokerages in particular, and how many people just really like pumped the brakes and stopped and did not reinvest anything in their business. I'm not saying you need to be going and, acquiring companies and doing all of this, but really reinvesting in your people, investing in your team, in your technology and all of this. I think, it speaks volumes for itself. Everyone in this room is here for a reason, and all of you guys have done a fantastic job of doing that. But yeah, I think it's super important for people to, if you plan to be here, reinvest in it and invest in your future. I think, yeah, there's not much more I can say than that.
can I summarize that into maybe not go big or go home, but do with a purpose, or
Yeah,
just
right.
sit on your butt and count the money and
Yeah, or sell the thing and move on.
He's saying, don't be so cheap, Tom.
All right, we're just going to wrap up here. One of the last questions is: you have 3 wishes to change the industry. What would you change if you had control over things?
Yeah, I think one thing we've all talked about is just how the hell do we find a way to work better together, and not to sound like a broken record, but I think the collaboration thing is key, and that, IBAO and everyone saying like better together, like there truly is something here. We have some amazingly talented people in our industry. It's still sad to me that Jeff's over doing his thing in his own corner, and Adam's doing his thing, and Tom's doing his thing, and Steve, like, there's all these beautiful, great stories that are happening, and maybe it's meant to be that way, and the independence is supposed to be there. And yes, I know there's broker groups and things happening, but I don't know how to crack the code. I don't know what this looks like. I know we definitely are all better together. And it's yeah, to have these skill sets from these unique companies and same experiences that we're in, and not be able to find a way to truly leverage that and compete on a much higher scale. I always feel like there's something left on the table there for sure. I guess another wish, just, I always say this, but like, to be in an industry that we don't really control. Being a brand guy and having a background, I'm like, imagine having a product that we can create and control, and working for a craft beer company or something, where we get to make the product, manufacture the product. Unfortunately, we're in the business we're in. But I think it's very hard to, be in a spot that we don't have full control, and we're sent an email with what's going on and go, all right, adapt and move. And yeah, I think in general, the perception of our industry needs to change. And I think through stories like this, and through people continuing to push is changing. I hate going into a room and having to not really want to tell people what we do or what I do. So I hope over time, and with more stories like this and more stories of people like you guys pushing the friggin' bar, that we could be in an industry that we can stand up and be super proud to be a part of. So I think we're getting there.
Is retention important to your brokerage? Of course it is. That's why at IFS, we have a cancellation prevention process. Want more details? Give us a call. I know you don't always use a premium finance company, but when you do, you should use IFS. Cheers.